So I'm going to call this meeting of the program subcommittee to order. It is Monday, July 8th, 2024. We are in the Gloucester High School Library. Effective August 16th, 2023, the public is welcome to attend in person. Alternatively, the public may attend through the Zoom link below, and that's in our agenda. Meeting notice will reflect if the meeting is Zoom only. As the recent amendments to the open meeting law allows, the school committee may continue to hold meetings remotely. Please note the in-person meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the remote connection. So maybe we'll start by just saying who's here, introducing ourselves, and then we'll begin our reports and deliberations. Sure.
Amy Pasquale.
Dean, school committee.
Lisa, school committee.
Keith Minio, school committee.
Ben Lummis, superintendent.
Great. So our first order of business today is, well, we're here today to review, update a few policies. The first one that we're going to look at is JFBB, which is the school choice policy, which is up for revision. Yes, so.
Our technical help is just has reported good news.
Great. Good news is good.
That would be John Smith, who's attending there.
John Smith.
I'm
Great.
just letting him know. Oh, John Smith, you can hear me. John Smith, you can go about your business. Thank you for helping us out with this grant and letting us know that the audio is working. Appreciate it. All right.
Okay.
Didn't have text. Okay, so three policies to go over with. We'll start with school choice. And just to give everyone a reminder, refresh your brains a little bit and some background. About a year and a half ago, maybe not quite a year and a half ago, yeah, maybe a year and a half ago. A consideration came up about some folks who were in our schools and moving out of them. And how could we give them school choice preference or sort of short or like give them school choice ahead of time so they can stay in our schools. We did that, but then a complaint was filed about the process we were using, which is a sort of normal process that the public can go through DESE with a number of matters. And DESE advised us, and after reviewing our policy, that it was sort of out of step with the state guidance and regulations. Okay, so that led us to looking more into it and recently trying to get information from DESE to answer some questions we have. Okay, so today really what's, and I haven't been able to get those answers, trying for a couple of weeks now and haven't been able to. But it's summertime and people are on vacation, so I'm going to assume the best. But just sort of so this point is a heads up to the committee on that. So we're going to have to revise the policy to make sure it is consistent with state regulations and state guidance. And then also to give you, and that's the pages behind the policies on the first page of the handout here, and then the frequently asked questions and answers, which is a DESE document. About is interdistrict school choice, so school choice where someone from another town or district wants a choice into Gloucester schools. And for you to read and have background, and we would have another program subcommittee in August probably when I would bring to you a revised proposal draft. Okay, so we don't have that because we're waiting for some answers from DESE. But you should read the whole thing through. It's 12 pages. It's a pretty significant, pretty large font, not too much, but particularly numbers. I'll list off a few. Pay attention to one. These are the question numbers: 1, 8, 14, 15. 16 and 17. 22. So those are the primary ones. There are others, of course, that are they're all important. but those ones are probably the ones where we have the most sort of disagreement where our policy stands now and where it needs to be. And those are also the areas that I'm asking, I'll be asking questions of Desi about to get clarification. And I'll come back to you in August with clarification and the draft policy. Make sense?
That makes sense. So this policy, this, what we have in front of us is not really something we're gonna address today.
Yeah, don't need to, right, yeah. Well, I was hoping, as you know, we met earlier from the program meeting, to have some answers from Desi. I didn't get those.
Okay. Well, that's sort of clear.
Yeah.
Anyone have any questions on that or please?
Seems clear, yeah.
Okay, so we'll come back. We'll come back to that. Okay.
Then the next ones we'll look at is student response, is the devices policy.
So are we starting with JICJ?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And just to, just in terms of the purpose of today's meeting is to help us make progress on getting ready to present this to the school committee, hopefully on August 14th. Okay, but in doing that, that requires input from the three of you, input, questions, concerns, clarifications, all that good information from the three of you, so we can do any either updates or revisions, and then we can be prepared. Depending on how today's work goes, we'll be able to vote on it to go to the school committee in August 14th, or we may have to meet again to see it again before doing that. The reason I'm August 14th, we've got two full school committees in August, the 14th and 28th. Would like to have this in place prior to beginning of the school year. So the goal today is to make forward progress on giving us input on this, so we can continue to move it forward. Make sense? So I'll hand it off to Amy, and she'll give folks a reminder and sort of where we were and what changes have been made since we last met, and then we'll go from there.
So this is one of the policies that will be looked at the beginning of the previous school year with the committee. And they made some changes, particularly on section 2. It used to be arrangements and it was a little more broad. They became more specific about particularly taking, recording audio and video and in the bathroom. We talked about, and they also noted that it must be off and out of sight. That's a new addition from the last one. And they also added the consequences for improper use will be assigned in accordance with the student code at 3.1. So this is a very basic of the policy. And then in addition to that, or as subsequent after this, there has been a committee formed at both O'Malley and at the high school to talk about how to operationalize this. And how to make sure that if this were to be approved, how they can make it work within their school day.
So to my colleagues, I'm gonna ask for questions from you first. I have plenty. But Jeremy, would you?
Sure. Just on the consequences. I'm just assuming there's suspension or expulsion if this is not followed and then the student persists and.
It would be progressive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just with the code of
It would,
conduct.
and it
Okay.
would be in accordance to what's in the handbook for each school.
Yeah, that's what I have for now.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're not gonna have them secure the devices in the homeroom or anything like that?
Without questions we had to ask. You can ask about them, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, have we been looking into it or
So that was,
considering?
the committee, both at the middle school and the high school had looked into that.
Yeah.
They were not in favor of having that within the schools, within each classroom. At O'Malley, it's a little different. They do have an opportunity to put them away. High school was not looking at for management wise at that. And they wanted to have it put away and out of sight.
For the high school?
Yeah.
So putting it away means it's in your backpack,
In your backpack.
Yeah. okay? And so what's different at O'Malley where we can secure?
O'Malley does have currently an option to put it leave it in homeroom,
Yeah,
or they can, but they chose against the Yonder pouches. They thought it was too cumbersome to manage as far as that's concerned, but they can check it in the homeroom, they can put it in the back of the room during class.
mhm. Yeah, and I was talking to a friend of mine who's a teacher in Ipswich, and apparently they've just done this too. Just not allowed it completely, and I think they secure them in their homerooms. But yeah, so I don't know, I'm just thinking that like for the high school, we're gonna like rely on them to have some self-discipline with an addictive device. To not like, be tempted to power it up, and so I guess these consequences are gonna be pretty important, right? There's gonna be,
Well, and they'll have to be enforced as well.
yeah.
Yes. There also was some pushback, particularly at the high school.
Mhm.
Some teachers allow students to use their cell phones for academic purposes. If their Chromebook's not available or didn't power up, or for a quick survey or something like that, is for academic purposes only.
Mhm.
The teachers have to monitor.
Yeah,
So,
I have another question, but I
Okay.
want you to go.
so I have a sort of overall question, which is like, we made the decision to allow the cell phones to be on their persons in school. And I'm wondering, was there any consideration given to them not having them on their persons in schools? As as an enforceable policy?
So, let me be clear. This is a proposed recommendation to the school committee. No decisions yet.
Right, no, I'm
I
sorry.
just want to be clear. So you said there's been a decision made,
Oh, okay,
okay?
okay,
Because I want to be clear, this is a school committee policy, right? The school committee will make decisions on this.
Yep.
Okay? So, but we're putting forth what after the committee work and work with principals, administrators, and on the committee, we're also teachers as well, what we believe is the right direction.
right, so I guess what I meant was they made a decision to bring this as forward as their.
So they did consider having it completely not on, yes. This is the recommendation that the committee decided to go with. There are some reasonable reasons why, particularly at the high school, where they were advocating to have them available if needed or wanted. And then that they also took in consideration what would be enforceable and reasonable to be part of the teacher's day. Right.
Yeah, and we've had very different experiences at the middle high school, in terms of use of phones. Middle school, when we were 2 years, it created quite a bit of disruption between students.
Say this again, what?
When we were allowing for 2 years,
Right.
okay, that was the first two COVID years, okay? But before that, we had at the middle school, like not even had out, it's my understanding. And when we did that, it was causing quite a bit of disruption because of social media use during the school year aimed at other students, okay? That essentially when we banned them or disallowed them at being out at all during the middle school day, the whole day, starting 2 school years ago. That's essentially, went away. Doesn't mean there isn't stuff happening outside of school, but during the school day, there's not, okay? And that was a significantly positive change, okay? While you have heard reports, particularly not this most recently completed year, but the year before that, of the high school having some videoing concerns there, some quite concerning. That diminished quite a bit last year, not clear why, honestly, but it did. I know the high school staff and leadership believes that that high schoolers have been reasonable in their use of them during times like lunch. Okay, where there is interaction not only individually and personally, but also with phones as well. So that I think, I'm not sure, has to do with maturity level. There's a vast difference in maturity level in terms of, especially early middle school and later high school. And so because we haven't had, but we do, and I think this policy does make it very clear that photography, videoing, is not allowed.
It doesn't say it's not allowed, it says it's not allowed unless someone gives their permission.
Right.
Which is another question, I mean, that's a significant, we only find out if reaches a level that someone knows, right? So we have no way to know that that's, I mean, for me, I would ask why we photograph or video at all, why that would be permitted at all in the school building. Like that doesn't need, why would that need to happen?
There certainly could be instructional purposes for taking videos at school, at the high school level, instructional video. Or, I mean,
There could be,
if it's right.
but firstly, there's two questions there. One, I mean, the equity question, does every single child have a phone? I know most do, I know the vast majority do. There may be some who don't. So for me, there's an equity question there. And of course, with all of this, you know, so my question, is, you know, may not be used at any time in any bathroom, but they can have it in the bathroom. And so again, we don't know until it reaches a level that is reported, right? So for me, as I've read about this and it feels like it almost, you know, it puts a lot of impetus on the student to be told, yes, you can carry this, yes, you can have this, you just can't do this with an addictive device in a world of social media. And to know that you as administrators, that we as a school committee, that anybody in a school building is only gonna know when that reaches a level that it's reported to them or to the police or to anyone else. So I would question why that would be allowed in the building at all given that we were allowing phones in the building. So that would be a question, and obviously the committees came
Right.
back with that.
So the there's particularly at the high school level. There's after school plans that change, coaches kind of reach out to students that way, you know, practice changes or sporting events rained out or something like that, dismissal changes coming from parents. There's a lot of communication that students, particularly at the high school, may need to be able to access as far as after school plans, maybe work, whatever it might be. So there was a feeling according to the committee of allowing them to have access so that they could manage their day beyond the school day from that. Knowing that it needs to be put away during academic times. And there was a sentiment of it was okay at high school during lunches. And I know, but whether it is in the policy or not, and whether it's enforced are two separate things. So to say you can't take video, absolutely, but we need to make sure it's enforced, right? So we want to make a policy. We need a policy that we can make sure we can enforce and that we hold up to what's best for the kids. And so this is what they've recommended. I mean, again, it's your policies.
Right, so I just wanna say one other thing and then I'll do it. But for me also, I was reading about this today, and one of the things I was reading, and there's definitely a back and forth around this, you know, it's not black and white. But one of the themes that I'm reading throughout this sort of this whole conversation is that when kids and adults, we know this too, when you have a device, you are distracted from in-person interaction, right? So lunch is an opportunity for kids to be interacting in person.
In reality.
In real life, right? And so for me, it would be a question, yes, they might need to know that their parents picking them up early. I would argue that that's gonna be the same from elementary on is how it is now. Right, that's not gonna be different from a third grader, and that is, or a seventh grader. And I think that as a district, it's important that we prioritize the moments when our students can be interacting in real life. And interpersonally. And allowing these in a lunchroom takes away from that. So I'm not a teacher, I'm not a mental health professional, but that there seems to be a thing not only about what students are doing online, but what they're not doing when they're online. So I just want to raise that from my perspective as I see it in the summer. like when kids are just like in each other's face, the interactions are different.
Yeah.
When they're only texting, it's not the same thing, and they're not learning the same skills.
Couple things, just to understand a few things more. You mentioned behavior, and you said, and concern there that it wouldn't be an issue till it was reported. Right? So help me understand, because isn't that the same with any behavior that's disruptive or negative?
It definitely is, but this is a place where we're saying you can have your phone in the bathroom, right? We don't say, let's think. What would be an example? We don't say you can cheat on your test unless someone finds out. Like, there are rules. So I know we're saying here, it's like you're giving both, you're saying you can have it in the bathroom, you can't use it in this way. So you're right, in the sense that like it's, any infraction is similar. This, I mean, phones are addictive and it just feels like it's just a temptation. It's just a temptation. We're offering them people, you know, and again, I don't even think it's just students. I think it's all human beings now. That here we have the temptation, right? And we're not trying, and we're not regulating it. We're not regulating the use of it to some, you know, like, we're only giving a small window of regulation, but allowing them to continue to access it in these moments.
Okay, lunch, I hear your concern about lunch. I hear your concern, I really get it about, you know, our kids not interacting personally, okay? Are they on their phones, and when we go to or spend time in the high school cafeteria, there's plenty of noise. There's plenty of interpersonal interaction. So I want you to know that, first of all. It's not like it's a quiet place, or not, no, that most kids are on their phones, not interacting. They may be interacting with their phones and their friends, okay? And we can make it, you know, whatever determination based on that, but I wanna assure you that there is that happening, you know? And so if there wasn't, I'd be much more concerned about that. I will say that the vast majority of their time in the school building is in class. You know, you think about lunch, which is 25 minutes maybe, I think. And then you think of passing time, which is pretty short. I do understand and appreciate the decision that needs to be made around, is it, you know, completely none at all, like out, like omitting, or is it some different version? Okay, you know, like any things that grow up, you know, help kids make good decisions, you know, informed decisions, and learn how to deal with responsibility. You know, I think our sense is that less capable of that with devices at the middle school, more capable, although not perfect, at high school. So, you know, certainly in terms of enforceability, complete ban is more easily enforced. You know, no doubt of that. But so that's sort of where I don't quite understand it. Maybe explain more about your concern about equity. I don't quite understand that.
Well, just does every child have a phone?
Well, we're not requiring them to use them. It's not like we're saying, pull out your
Yes,
phone.
Right, so
Well, if
how's
you're
it
saying,
tied to equity? I don't.
because if you're saying they could be used for instructional, in an instructional setting, but not every student has them.
But everybody has a computer though.
Right.
Everybody has a Chromebook, and so it's only used if it's not required to use it. But I've been in a biology classroom or psychology, whatever, science classroom, and they pulled their phone out to use the calculator. I've watched them do it that way. There are also calculators available. Students don't have a phone. So I have seen it used instructionally, and it was very appropriate. I've seen them use timers for doing an experiment. We need to time 2 minutes. It's a quick way for them to do it.
But I'm we would move away from that. Like it's being used in some situations now. The phone is used as, you know, in learning or instruction. But we
Right.
would move away from that.
But we have other we have calculators in the classroom, we have other options.
Am I right, to make sure I'm clear on this, is that still would not be allowed, that would no longer be allowed? We would have a ban on
I'm taking it out.
taking
Well,
out in the classroom, or am I reading it wrong?
No, I think,
no, it doesn't say,
Teacher's discretion.
it's teacher's discretion.
right, by a teacher for an educational purpose. Unless otherwise directly number 2.2. Yeah, no, the equity question was just making sure that all students have access to equal opportunities. I just want to say, like, it's a really,
2.4 does say may not be used at any time in any bathroom or changing area. That is more, we're not saying that it can be used in the bathroom,
okay,
just to clarify that.
I would push back on that one. Just because, like, so, well, to the lunch thing, so I have 2 lunch duties every day. And all the kids are on their phones, but they're also interacting. So we have this new postmodern world
I know
where,
that's what they do.
you know, they sort of
Okay.
self-interact, I don't know what you wanna call it, but they're interacting like friends do. They're also on their phones, but I always feel relief that they can use them in the hallways and they can use them in lunch. Because their whole lives are on their phones. So, you know, there's kind of a thing, there's kind of a give here. In the bathroom or in a locker room or changing area, you're gonna have some kids sitting there, what do you know, come on, hurry up, and they're just sitting there scrolling. Or if in the bathroom, they're, you know, using their phones for whatever reason, that's not, you know, somewhat criminal or taking pictures of someone who doesn't want their picture taken. Do we have monitors in front of the bathroom to cut down on vaping and vandalism and whatnot? Like,
We're very limited.
yeah, so, you know, we have
That,
teachers.
in terms of bathroom, that's a bigger concern than phones in
Yeah.
the bathroom, by far.
So I would think, you know, I would say. The policy we're doing, I hate it, but it works, where you have a teacher outside of the bathroom, you only let 3 kids in at a time, the teacher's there. It used to be the kids had to sign in and then use the bathroom. Some schools have a QR code to use the bathroom, which we used to do right after COVID, which maybe takes too long. But if we're putting out a policy about phones in the bathroom, then we might cure that by having a suggested policy to go with it. Where the bathrooms are monitored closer than they are now.
So separate from this, both the middle school and high school are piloting a software called Smart Pass
Oh, okay.
this year. And they do log in, like they leave the classroom. Teacher adds it, you know, just clicks a button and if they've been gone for 20 minutes. it's
Right.
Recorded,
Okay.
we can find patterns and if there's too many people in the bathroom, we can kind of keep that track of that. That just started the end of this year, it started earlier at O'Malley, very end of the year this year at the high school. But they're gonna be piloting it this year.
The teacher checks it out or the student QR codes?
It depends on how the classroom set it up, they're still working it out,
Mhm.
but they'll have to check in and check out, so we'll know where they are and how many students we
Oh.
have at the time.
All right,
If something were to happen at 10:52 and in the girls' bathroom, we could look at the system and
Right.
see who was in there, those kind of things. But that, again, it's a pilot for this year,
Yeah.
it's separate from the policy, but it speaks to your question.
yeah, my other concern would be, 2.2 must be off and out of sight, no kid's gonna turn their phone off. So if that's something that we want to enforce, I would challenge the language. You know, must be on silent, or must not make any noise or something like that, just because. Takes a minute to start up your phone, I mean, I know AP and honor students who text their mom every period, you know, with this policy. So I would just challenge the word off and, you know, The other more important thing I was thinking is, do we have a bullying prevention person who's in charge of taking bullying matters? We have that at.
Yeah, all the, I mean, if it's being reported to a person,
Mhm.
okay, then that person, takes it directly to administration, guidance, okay? If it's reported through our online form, all those go to Amy Cam, and then she, to the right school person.
Okay,
Yeah.
but we don't have a one person who gets a stipend and they're only. Well, one of their jobs is to report it to the authorities and deal with. Like a small group of administration that purposely deals with
There's
that.
administration at each building that would investigate reported bullying.
Okay,
At elementary, it's usually the principal or just the counselors. Like
okay,
middle school, it would be an assistant principal, or it might be guidance, it might be
all right,
adjustment, but it would go to the appropriate person in each school. And then it, like the superintendent said, if you submit a form online, Amy
Okay.
Cam gets it first, and then she'll get it to the right person to do the investigation.
all right. The reason I asked that is because you have like, I don't know the answer to this, and hopefully you guys have a policy or there was a policy, but if you take a picture against someone's will during the day, but then you send it to your friends after school hours, it's not like a fight where the fight takes place in school, you're in charge of discipline. If a fight happens after school in a neighborhood, the school's not, party to it. But if some kid gets a text of himself doing something and the kid breaks down and he's being bullied by people on social media, I don't know how to deal with, I don't know how to think about that. Because it's our problem as, in
I
school
think
time.
taking the photo or whatever it is. 2.3,
Right, violates 2.3,
And then it might overlap with the bullying or cyberbullying
okay,
policy as well,
all right,
depending on the nature of it, and you might be breaking multiple policies at that point.
We do have it.
And the matter there is to some degree where it happened, but really it's having impact in school.
yeah,
And so obviously things can carry from outside into school and start having impact in school. That's what we're really looking for.
Right.
And if not, then we're working with our, police, department partners on addressing it outside of school. If necessary, if it raises that sort of.
But isn't it also like happened in the high school last year, if something happens in the building, even if, a photo is taken, a video is taken, it still sort of changes the nature of the bit, like, a student's sense of safety
Oh, yeah.
in the building, so, so that's already an impact. Okay,
Oh,
I
it
think-
very
right,
quickly
but-
impacts the school day,
Yeah.
even if it happens
yeah.
outside of
Yeah.
school,
right,
them coming into the school, they might feel threatened. But it very quickly becomes the school
Right.
doing a bullying investigation.
right, no, I'm sure it is, I'm sure it does. Did you have something, Keith? or you
I
wanted-
think a lot of what you said, I'm concerned about is, like what you mentioned, with our ability to police a policy is very difficult, or any policy, or just enforce, I don't know, police is the right word, let me say enforce a policy, is pretty difficult, and if we're allowing kids to carry their devices throughout the day, and you say they can't have them on in the bathroom, there's no way to actually, that's gonna be the number one spot where people are gonna go and do, whatever they need to do with their phone or. I feel really strongly about a complete no use from beginning of the day to the end.
So it's your policy.
Mhm.
I just want to put it out there that most likely, there might be some pushback from parents who truly feel that that's a line of safety to know the AP students that check in with their parents every day, that any student, but I'm using your example. And there might be some pushback as far as the community wanting to be able to have access to communicate with their kids.
Yeah, there is also a hard line to the school, like the old days or.
Yeah.
Or like elementary school, like how many kids in elementary school have devices? We all as parents, well, okay, some do. I don't know about a lot, but maybe I haven't seen it honestly, but.
I've seen it from third grade on.
But they're not using the devices during the day in the middle of class. We don't have,
So they might have them on their person, they stay in their backpack,
They stay in their
so that's along the lines of this, is
Right.
if they have it. It's
but
unseen.
but are we gonna allow parents to disrupt class by texting their loved ones or allowing students to text their
No,
mom
but
or
there are
dad?
those fourth and fifth graders that walk themselves home from school.
Mhm.
Parents feel safe knowing that they have a cell phone if something happens.
Sure, I'm not saying they
There,
can't
I
have
just
to.
am letting you know, there's definitely gonna be a safety thread
Yeah, no, 100%.
that comes with this.
I think that's the case in like every article I've read, like parents want to be able to reach their kids. And there is an understanding of like direct access. And in the schools that have said no phones, they've had that pushback too. And, you know, I have not done a comprehensive look, but you know, they've had to go through the thing and say each classroom has a phone. You know, there is, look, I think what we're dealing with here, and I don't know that we can, is sort of, we've got a societal expectation. This is bigger than the schools, right? There's a societal expectation that we can all walk around with our little computers and have access to the entire world. And if we have a young brain or a middle-aged brain or an old brain, we're all addicted to these devices and just scrolling and scrolling. And the question for me is, in some ways, and this may not be an answerable question, is like, in our schools with young minds, do we want to be helping them get away from this distraction, which is changing their neurology?
Sure is.
Or do we want to just go along and allow what is completely understood to be the norm?
Who's norm?
What part is completely understood the norm?
The norm is that we all have our devices and we can reach people whenever we want, and we can scroll and we can
So-
check the
so,
weather.
A couple things, so, first of all, actually, in reading this, I'm not clear now, and I may just miss it here, is we're trying to make this between pre-K through 8 and 9 through 12, have different approaches for those.
Okay, that I
Okay.
didn't see.
That's right, so I just think, I think.
So this
meaning-
policy was meant, was designed, whatever, to be the district-wide policy and then the operationalizing of it at the grade levels. So elementary, out, away, we don't see it, it's not there.
Yeah, same with,
Middle school, same.
I think,
High school is
yeah,
different.
I think we want that in the policy,
Mhm.
okay?
Yeah, that doesn't come across to me
Yeah, I
here.
think we want that in the policy. And then, and we are making changes with high school, okay, high school passing time, yes, cat lunch, yes. Okay, so,
Yeah,
I-
that, yeah.
and also, we're not saying they can't be in school, okay, because I don't think that would, it's not feasible, okay? But they can't, they need to be, you know, I hear that, you know, silence versus off, away, and we don't see them ever, okay? In K through 8, okay, pre-K through 8, right? Which is what we're operating on now, basically, okay? And then high school, as I said, away except for passing time and lunch.
And bathrooms.
No, it says,
It says may not be used, but it can be there.
may not be used at any time, in any bathroom or changing area. I
Well,
don't,
you're gonna take them into the bathroom is what you're saying, because you have them on your person all the time.
you also, you have that on you. We're not taking them, well,
Right.
we, in classroom, I think we will have the ability of putting them in a spot, not locked in a pouch, okay? That sort of thing, we're not going down that route. So I don't feel like this is an all or nothing approach. I feel like it's actually quite limited. And then the question is, can students and staff follow through at the high school? Okay, we have been practicing this, we've been doing this for 2 years at the middle school, and it's been happening very effectively. Okay, so,
So that,
so that, I don't, so it's not all or nothing. Okay,
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
and the distinction between the levels is that's what the committee work has been working on. Rather than putting it in the policy, it would be in the handbook.
yeah, we just want some distinctions, I think, in the policy.
That's
I
fine.
do too, because this doesn't, it feels loose for those young, I think, I don't know, I think it makes sense to make a distinction, because the pre-K through 8 is really quite distinctly different.
And, yeah, brains and otherwise, brains, behavior, all that,
Right,
Yes.
and,
maturity level,
right,
Yeah.
and I guess then the other question for me would be, So I still maintain this idea of like, I'm watching kids too, elementary school kids, they sit next to each other, even in social time, and they're on their iPads, and they're next to each other, and they're on. That's sort of the way it works now. I don't think it's great, but I think that's just how it is. You know, it does go back to my question of like, we go along with this or we don't. I also would wanna know if these things are no longer, it's been working well at O'Malley, great. And then what if a new cohort comes in who was a different age when all these things came up, you know, like, I feel like every age now, like the ones who were younger during COVID, the ones, we're gonna see differences. I mean, it's probably the case all the time, but now with social media and with access to iPhones and every other device and watches and everything else, we're gonna see, you know, we may see different usage. We may see that it doesn't work as well, right? And we may see that there's more struggle. I don't know. And if we do, you know, it takes us a long time to redo a policy. So I don't know if there's a way to put in there some sort of like, some sort of something to say, like, if, you know, I, as a new O'Malley parent, I'm not gonna want them to have to wait a year if phones are like becoming a real nuisance in November. Like, I just think we don't know how it's gonna go. I understand, I see your confusion. We don't know what's gonna happen. I'm glad that this cohort has been good at it. I'm glad it's worked well.
So there are changes between classes, grades, a sixth versus seventh versus eighth. You know, this year's sixth becomes next year's seventh, obviously. And just so folks know, whether it's at elementary school or middle school or even high school, you know, these are different sized places, right? They really do have their own culture. And that culture can stick for quite some time. So, so you already see differences like that in behavior, kindness, attention to detail, you know, academic achievement, you know, in grades, okay? Again, across any grade, right? So what you're describing already happens on any number of levels. If the school committee wants to change a policy, the school committee just has to direct us to do the work and can be as aggressive on that as they like, okay? So I'm less concerned about pace. Yeah, I'm less concerned about pace, because that's really much more in your control, okay? When school committee people tell me directly to get something done, usually we get it done. But, you know, folks I wouldn't want you to hesitate on that, okay? But I do want to say, like, there's already those variations, okay? Those exist. I think Jeremy, you probably, you know, support that, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, just that notion, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't, but, and I think, and yeah, I think we're trying to allow for the differences in developmentally here.
can I wanna ask, so the middle school policy, I love the fact that they're off, we're silent, they're in their lockers.
Yeah.
You know, that it works with that age group. I don't think I'll ever feel any pushback towards that, because I think it makes sense, it's logical. On the high school, if we could look at 3.2 and 3.3. Well, first of all, I would love to have a conversation, not now, but maybe we look at some data, but progressive discipline, what that would look like, because I think the students will want to know what that looks like. But taking away, so 3.2, taking away a kid's privilege to carry a device to school, or taking away the device for the remainder of the semester school year. I'm against those two, and I think we're gonna get a lot of pushback on those two. Just because, you know, if a student pushes it and you have a teacher, like I've decided I'm gonna come down really hard on the phone right at the beginning of the year, and I'm gonna say, this is my policy, you know, so you have a teacher who's harder about that than I would be, could push it with a student, and I guess I would wanna know, or I guess we should decide what that progressive discipline could look like. And, you know, like I like 3.4, like I think if you had 3.1 and 3.4, it would be perfect. I just don't, if my kid screwed up and then comes home and has a letter, it says, you know, the principal says I can't have my phone for the rest of the year. Oh my God, like I
Well,
can just
it's-
imagine the
But it's progressive.
uproar. Yeah,
It's progressive, so the first time you wouldn't say that.
right,
It would say you can't have it tomorrow or something. I'm just,
yeah,
I mean, for me, and you know more about this, A, because you have older kids and B, because you teach older kids, but there has to be a meaty consequence. Like, I think there has to be a consequence and a consequence that involves the device. Right,
Yeah.
like,
and you, what do you think about 3.2 and 3.3 then?
well, it just depends when you get there. I know, you know, when we looked at policies that we're doing, we looked at a lot of policies in the Commonwealth, and I saw today. I mean, there's a whole range of things, but there are plenty of schools that just say no, or there are plenty of schools, we looked at policies where you do it and like. You get one violation and that thing doesn't come back.
Hmm.
I mean, people, the school districts are doing that,
Mhm,
I don't know how it's working for them, but everyone's trying everything.
right,
And so I think progressive makes sense. We maybe have to spell it out in the handbooks, but
yeah,
I
kids will
know,
wanna know.
well, then maybe they shouldn't violate the rules, like
Well,
that's
yeah,
the
but you
thing.
could,
You say it's an addiction though.
It is an addiction,
Yeah.
but if we're letting them have this totally addictive device, right, on their person, even if it's off. We're trusting them, right? That's part of what this is. We're trusting them with, I'm not saying we're living, you know, we're telling them, here are the rules. If you violate these rules, there will be consequences.
I actually don't like 3.2, 3.3 either. I think it'd be a better consequence to have them turn the phone into the main office at the beginning of the day and leave it at the office and then retrieve it at the end of the day. Because like, I don't know who mentioned it, maybe you did, about, you know, people have jobs to go to, they need to communicate after school, to have them completely restricted. Say, leave this at home, then have to go home, get their device, find out what's going on, and then, you know, instead of saying, go straight to your job.
So as a former principal, I've taken a phone away in the elementary. Temporary withdrawal of privilege to carry the device in school is the student had to drop it at my desk every morning.
Yes,
Right.
that's what I'm talking about,
And
so.
and I think 3.2 covers that.
Yeah.
And he had to do it once and then he had to do it for 2 weeks
Yeah.
and then he didn't have to do it anymore because he learned to not
So you're saying
take it out
that
at
you do,
recess.
they do bring the school, the device to school, and then you
Right.
take it at the beginning of the day.
Because that particular student violated.
Yeah.
He had it out at recess and
So this doesn't say that,
It doesn't,
temporary withdrawal of privilege to carry the device to school.
to school. So you are carrying it to school, you're just not carrying it in school.
maybe during school
So
hours.
do you wanna say during school hours?
Yeah,
But a couple things, this is, so I agree with that suggestion, okay? President will be followed and may
may
include the
include,
following.
right, so it's also,
We're not trying to be comprehensive here,
right,
okay?
Right.
But I do think the addition of that, like a, you know,
Instead of 2,
well, no, both, they're both. I think, you know, an additional, one that is less severe than temporary withdrawal of privilege to carry device to school would be, it's left with, you know, in the school office or something,
Right.
you know, or, you know, around school, you know, carry a device around school, you know, on their person type of thing. So, but I would put these in here as examples, as they're intended to be, as examples of what could happen.
right,
Cause I do want people to see what could happen, and that's both, families and, you know, but we wouldn't put much more than this, because it gets away from policy and into
Right.
procedures.
right, right.
so
Okay,
could
Right.
I suggest to say to carry a device on school premises to match the language in 2.1?
no, I would be about specific, but we can work this out, and
Okay.
we know what the intent is, but the intent is basically what you said, which is, you
Right.
know, they gave it to the principal. You know,
Right.
it was in the office for that day, so
Yeah.
they had it to school and leaving school, but during the school day, there was no.
Right.
So it's some version of that.
Okay.
I do wanna bring up two,
Two.
yeah, I think we have potential for a gigantic loophole, which will make it much harder on everybody, which is unless otherwise directed by a teacher or administrator for
Yeah.
education purpose. Okay,
Yeah.
I can understand.
That was a big push from the committee. I just am letting you know that.
I can get that, I get that, I anticipated that. That will make it so it's different
In every class.
enforcement in every classroom.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think that's a real problem.
But just for educational purposes.
That's
I
it.
understand that. I'm just sharing what the committee
Yeah, no, I get that.
had shared.
So I have some concerns about that. Does anyone else share a concern?
I share that concern. I share that concern.
Because of teacher oversight, what's,
No, because of a lack of consistency, like,
Mrs. Smith allows it, but.
right, yeah, well, in,
Mr. Jones-
right, in Mr.
Right.
Joe's class, we can have it out.
Yeah.
But in this one, you know, and what are you gonna do? Like, you're not gonna question a teacher. I mean, I have a problem with that. I think it's okay to limit these things. I think it's okay to say, we are in school and we are being instructed. And I understand kids go to work after, and I understand parents want to reach their kids, but kids' brains are so distracted, adult brains are like, we know this, like, and so just the impulse, we all have it, you know.
If it's just sitting there.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, when you do Apple, like the Google screen time thing for your kids, it tells you not only how much screen time they have, it tells you how many times they pick up the device.
Mm.
There's a pickup, and it's astonishing. So I think that loophole for me would be a great one to get rid of, even though I understand the committee wanted it. Because I feel like a consistent policy that says, here's how it's gonna be in our classrooms. I don't know, it feels like it benefits everyone.
well, it trusts the teachers, that's one of the reasons I like it. And there needs to be enforcement, you know, I walk through the halls, I look in and I see every kid's on their phone and the teacher's teaching or the teacher's at the desk or something. And I think to myself, you know, like, should I report this? Like, I don't wanna talk to the teacher, that's awkward, but these, you know, like these, it's, I think if we make the policy a little harder, like you're saying, but we give that caveat of like, you know, it's up to the teachers, I think that will bring the pressure down a little bit.
Right, so maybe if we had the first sentence, period, may not be used at any time during the day. Teachers or administrators may on occasion, I don't know what the word would be, permit supervised use. Or something like that.
Yeah, as long
May-
as the teachers have the go-ahead to do that, and it's not, you know, I don't want the teachers to be afraid of somebody taking their phone out, and then an administrator walks by and says, excuse me, like, you know, what were you doing period 3? So I like, you know, educational purpose, because kids play Kahoot, I don't know if you know what that is, but it's just a fun game, the kids, you know, kids love that, I mean, the kids love being on their phone for some, you know, like,
Who can be educational?
yeah, I mean, it is educational.
Yeah, I know,
you know.
just.
But can Kahoot be done on a Chromebook? No.
Okay, I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah.
There is a whole-
I'm not sure, I've never used.
Whether it's a quick survey, exit ticket, you know, a check-in, there's a gazillion ways, but even the things that are done on phones, you know, like these things we're talking about,
Can be done on a Chromebook.
you know, hopefully be on a Chromebook, I don't know, because I don't know all the uses that people can use them for, obviously, I know some of them, but I think that's the question, because I do understand your concern with equity, if we're using phones widely, okay, that's the purpose of having a one-to-one program, right? I think we're gonna have to talk more about the second half of 2.2 and how to, you know, if I will say, if the policy is that they can't have them out, they can't have them out in the class, then if a teacher's allowing that, then an administrator would have to talk to a teacher if they saw that, you know? And maybe it's because the teacher notice it, because then the teacher is, you know, more aware, that's fine.
Which isn't the case a lot of time.
Yeah, so, but, you know, I'm more concerned about the mixed message that happens to students where the rules change fast in the classroom. That's very confusing for students, no matter what age they are. And I don't want to create a policy that essentially, you know, invites that.
So Laura, what's the example you're thinking of for 2.2? In terms of if we say, unless otherwise directed by teacher administration for an educational purpose, what, like, I don't know, maybe an example between different classrooms, what should our, not our fear, but what should our
Well,
admonition concern?
I think that different teachers, different human beings are gonna have different attitudes about the use, and maybe different subjects also would be more or less conducive. I don't know if an English literature class is gonna need your iPhone the way maybe timing for a experiment would. But I do, you know, I'm torn between the fact that, of course, our iPhones are the easiest thing to use for most things, and we're all accustomed to that. But I think that once you have expectations that are consistent, students learn a different way to do something. It may be you have to pull out a calculator. Maybe you get a stopwatch. Like, I don't know. I know it seems archaic. I understand that's gonna seem like the dark ages. But maybe you just, and I think probably different teachers are gonna feel very differently about it. Some teachers are gonna be more into their phones than others, like, it's just like every other human. But I agree with what Ben's saying, or I can see what Ben's saying about every student going into every classroom, knowing there is a basic rule. We don't have our phones out. We aren't using phones in here. So I like the consistency, and I lean towards wanting less, not more. I just do. I think there's just grave harm, and it's really hard to pull back.
It's a great way to limit exposure to devices by having a complete ban. Like, that's like, you know, a good chunk of their day, like 2/3 of their day, where they're not gonna be, you know, corrupted in a lot of ways. Like, they're like you say, their neuro pathways are altered. I'm pretty sure that's been proven, but the less, I think, there's a lot, like you said, okay, calculator, you can get that on your Chromebook. A timer, you can get that on your Chromebook. Anything that is required for science class should be able to be, you know, solved on a Chromebook. A timer, like standalone timer, there's clocks on the wall with second hands. Are there?
They don't know how to read clocks.
They better,
No.
they better.
They don't, I know.
They don't.
I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I know it sounds archaic. I just feel like there is something about attention and having your phone. And the more you use your phone, because here's the thing, here's my observation, and I think it's true. It happens to me all the time. You pick up your phone for one thing, but then you pick up your phone for the timer, but then you've gotten 4 texts and 3 notifications on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or whatever your Snapchat, right? So you pick it up in your classroom for that educational instructional purpose, but inevitably there's something else there to see.
So
Same thing with the internet.
are you suggesting just to end the sentence during the instructional day?
I was saying there may be some less, to end it and maybe put in some caveat. Like occasional supervised, whatever I said, like teachers or administrators may
Direct students to use their devices with supervision.
with like, you know, I don't know exactly what the wording would be to limit it, you know, on occasion or, you know, with specific purpose or something. I don't know exactly. Because I agree, you want teachers to have flexibility, but I really think the more we can keep them on their phones during the instructional day.
So the otherwise directed doesn't say that? How about directed and supervised?
No, because I think it
I'm
needs
just
to
trying
be
to
more
get the wording.
limited. I think it
More
needs to be
limited.
more limited. I think the sentence needs to end.
Well, that can be limited though by the teacher.
But what Ben is saying is that if you've got one teacher who limits it one way and one teacher
Right.
who limits it another way, you've got inconsistent expectation.
I
We-
think that's 65% okay. I'm unsure of the rest of it, but I think kids know teachers and they know, you know, who's a hard ass and who's not. I'd like I think the language is good. And then, you know, maybe we can work on the language. A very important thing that's not on here that we might have to look at the contract is teachers and admin texting students or contacting students on social media.
That's a big.
Because
Should not happen.
it should not happen. I was a coach for 16 years though.
Coaches.
I text,
It's not supposed to
my
happen.
captains and my players all the time. You know, theater, you know, well, I mean, anything, any club
Any communication.
or any communication. Of course, when you do it, you have to act the same way that teachers and admin act when they're emailing, knowing that somebody can see it or that somebody, you know, like just, you know, they always say, well, just remember you're always being watched, which is a horrible thing to say,
Yeah.
but
It's true.
the accountability is there and it's true. And so I would want to look at the contract again and you know, we can't give rides in our cars to students. That makes sense. You know, but you can text a student, send a picture, all those things that could be professional or academic or sports related or club related. I think that should be in here somewhere. And that's something that,
We have there's a separate policy
oh, it's everyone else.
about communicating from personal devices that they're not supposed to. Cause it can't be archived, it can't be,
Right.
I think that was one of the policies that we went over with technology last time, maybe.
Yeah, there was something about that.
But I think that is a separate social media kind of policy that they really should not be doing
They
that,
should.
even though
I know.
coaches and clubs
Right.
do,
Yeah.
they should not be.
And I'm sure there are school districts out there who figure out another way of doing it. I just don't know myself.
Yeah. Well, there's a Remind app that's allowed.
Yep.
Which, I mean, anything that we come up with can be abused or perverted or, you know,
But the
Corrupted.
issue is do you have a record of it? So if something does go wrong.
So if we did use something like Kinvo,
Yeah, or I mean, even, I don't.
I'm sure we could come up with something,
Google Chat is archivable,
right?
okay? And I think if you have Gmail, which all our students do,
Yep.
then you should be able to also do Gchat. Google Chat, sorry. I don't know exactly. I've only used it for my laptop, so I don't, for my desktop, anyway, this thing. So I just don't know, and so anyway, but I do believe it is a separate matter, separate policy.
okay.
Okay, that's something, you know, we'll look into as well. But it is something that, you know, our IT team has raised concerns about, I've raised concerns about. We're aware of it being a concern,
Hmm.
so. But it's distinct from this policy, I believe. I can.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think it is in a different policy. So,
Can I just summarize, I think, what I have written down, okay, for us to work on? You know, specify different grades. Adjustments of 2.2, come back with some language on that. Add a new, sort of a lighter, gradation on the consequences. Okay, the one that is about, you know, based on the example that Amy shared, which is like just giving to the principal. I think we may wanna look at this, I can't remember if we discussed this or I just discussed it in my own head here. But 2.3, without the permission of the subject.
yeah,
I think clarity here, is gonna be helpful to people, students and staff alike. So I think that's something for us to look at, but to talk about perhaps with the committee some more. Okay, or at least with the folks who work in the committee. Uh,
What do you mean by that? Can you just clarify that a little bit?
well, just about without the permission of the subject, does that open up a loophole which we're spending then time determining whether the subject gave permission or not?
Right. I thought
As
she said
opposed to,
okay.
it was video and it was taken in the school. It's therefore it's forbidden, you know, it's not allowed.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you know, or maybe this is about. Yeah, this is all by students, so I mean, there's real value in taking photographs and videos in the classroom setting or instructional setting.
Right,
Or academic setting, because we want the public to know the
Right.
good things happening in our schools. That doesn't necessarily have to be done by students though,
And
and this is governing
Like
students.
often is the high school thinking of like the art festival,
Right,
we
right,
have students that their classes, they use cameras because it's photography class, but
right,
there's certainly. The Gilmetter, I'm sure there's pictures that go into that are students take,
right.
there's definitely opportunity or valid reasons for students to be taking photographs.
Sure.
To promote a club, to write in the Gilmetter,
Yeah.
to,
So
Yeah,
that's why I think 2.3 has got to be modified in some way, but I really want to make it. You know, we want to make it clear that taking videos of kids, of, you know, peers or teachers. During the school day and posting them on social media is not appropriate. I don't know the policy language to do that, but.
That's all they do, by the way. Every profile pic of every kid taken in the bathroom. Cause the lighting's good. Like, these are things that like, like, I have a
something
personal.
like a true high school teacher.
Yeah, I mean, I have a personal rule that I don't become friends with or Instagram followers with any of my students until after they're 18 and graduated. So that way, there's no wavering, whatever. But what do they do in the bathroom? They take pictures because the lighting's good, or they take, like, I'll be looking at a picture and I'll say, wait a minute, that's my classroom. And the kids are taking a picture in the back row or something. But the permission of the subject, that comes up all the time. Kids take pictures of teachers against, obviously against their permission. So you don't want to change the language of 2.3, you're just.
Well, I mean,
Maybe.
I would consider, I would, I want to discuss with Amy and other folks in the committee, if you take out without the permission of the subject. So it becomes clearer,
Yeah,
okay?
right, and then more limited.
right, but I think with the permission of the subject, yeah,
You can have-
like you said,
You
it's
can have
hard to.
subjects permit themselves to be videoed doing a lot of stupid things.
Right, yeah, and you also have, bullying, you take a picture of a kid and the kid's being bullied, and then the teacher says, did you give permission? Of course I did, the kid doesn't wanna get beat up again. So, I just,
So those are my concerns.
yeah,
All
good.
what you just voiced there, so that's, again, we've now discussed it, so. So those were the things that I wrote down, doesn't mean it's comprehensive, what other things
I
we
just wanna,
discussed that we haven't gotten to?
I just wanna take a look at the purpose at these at 1 through 4 here.
Uh-huh.
To facilitate communications between students and families, friends before and after school in an emergency. So firstly, I do not think it is our role to be facilitating communications before and after school. I just wanna say, like, I do not think that that should be a purpose in our policy. Like, that's not our thing.
Well, that's the purpose of the policy, not the person, right? Is that what you're
It's the
saying?
purpose of letting you,
It's the purpose of-
of having a phone at all,
Okay, all right.
right?
So the phone's purpose is to facilitate communication.
I think the purpose needs to be, the purpose of the use
Right, or
of
something,
electronic devices,
right,
right? I think, because,
or this policy or whatever, or, because the next one is to prevent disturbance to
Oh, right.
instruction or the distraction of students during the school day.
Right, the policy exists to prevent disturbance.
Yeah, right, so I think I was wrong, I think it is purpose of the policy.
Right.
So the
Um,
purpose of the policy, I think there's, let's say, I think number one is something about clear expectations about how personal control devices, can and cannot be used
Right,
during the school day.
right. And it's, again, I would take out the word facilitate and just say maybe to understanding the use or something.
To allow communications between students and families before and after school and. in
Yeah, that could
emergencies.
be. Facilitate just rubs me the wrong way because that just doesn't feel like the role here. So prevent disturbance to instruction, which actually should probably be, from my perspective, as a school committee policy, should be the first thing. That's our first priority, right?
Yep.
Well, number one's kind of simple, so it's a good one to start with.
Yeah, but it's not, my focus is not, as a school committee member writing a policy, my goal is to prevent distraction of students and disturbance to instruction.
So would 1.1 be the last one? Just put it to the bottom.
Possibly, yeah,
Or maybe to allow, is that what you said, to allow?
To allow
communication?
communications between students and families and friends before and after school and in emergencies.
right.
Like
There's
that's-
also this question, just to know, and you both know this, part of it is that families think they can only get, that this is how they get in touch with their students, but of course, part of the, what districts do, I mean, like, there are phones in every single classroom now, right? I mean, I understand why. But in an event, I mean, if we were to think it through, in the event of an emergency, the last thing we need is a kid talking on their cell phone or getting pinged by their parents if, God forbid, there's some horrible thing happening in a classroom. So like, this is something we take for granted, but the truth is that it's not the training and it's not like best practice, right, for every kid to have a cell phone going off in an emergency. So I know we accept that, I know every family or many families feel that. But I think we have to probe that a little bit, because that's not actually real.
Well, I think based on, that's one of the concerns about, I have at least, about beyond the pouches. Is you have an emergency. I don't want anyone spending time getting cell phones unlocked from pouches. Like,
Right,
not interested.
no, not interested at all.
I want them getting out of the building or going safely, right? So anyway.
Right, 100%, but yeah,
So I think I'm agreeing with you what you're saying.
yeah.
you know,
Um,
you know,
so anyway, to discourage the improper, unethical use of electronic, so that's communication devices, that's appropriate, I think. To set guidelines for use that promote positive mental health habits for all students.
I'm sorry,
No, it's okay.
Oh.
I was done.
I was just interested in the committee that put this together, did it include students?
Not at omit, I think there were asked to have students on there, but there were not students that signed up, I can't believe.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
so yeah, I'm just wondering about the positive mental health habits, because I don't know what that means, I don't know what that means.
We have it out all
a
the time.
couple of things, I mean, that, one limiting use.
Yeah.
Okay, that's clearly what this, well, limiting use, setting guidelines for use, right? But with it as well is, then we can start, especially, among parents and families, giving clear directions about do this, not this. Okay, and I think that's appropriate. We've had a number of, family forums in the last few years. And I think, when you do policy here, we can become clearer about, we should become clearer in our messaging to families about the addiction, the concern, the destructive use, whatever you want to call it, okay, that what we call phones can lead to. So I think I think that it opens us up to do more of that by making a pretty clear statement.
Alright.
So,
I guess part of me, well, I always wanna play a little bit of devil's advocate, but just. Thinking about how positive phones can be for certain students that do have mental health issues. Or just the mental health of like, I know I can text my daughter at lunchtime. And know, for, well. Whatever, that she's okay or that she needs something after school. But I think until we all get holographic implants, I think phones are reality. That we're kind of like, we won't be having this discussion in 20 years, this will be, antiquated, but right now, I think something that's loose enough and tight enough would be the perfect thing we're looking for, having something that's hard and disciplined, but a policy that allows for enough usage to say to the kid, that's enough, but not to the beginning, let it go a little bit and then we come in and say that's enough and I know that's where we're at anyway, but I just.
The feedback I'm getting from parents is like no phones. No phones. Now, I understand that's totally limited and anecdotal. I know other members of the committee are getting similar feedback from probably very different demographic. I think it has to do with how we as adults handle our phones and how we think of it. I get what you're saying, it is reality, and in this reality, our children are being harmed. That's true. And so we're in this impossible place, right? We are not going to change society sitting at this table. But I do think that whatever we can do to limit the distraction of the phone and to stop its sort of overwhelming presence is something we should do. So that doesn't help us much on a policy level, but I think that's my strength.
Well, that's the route to what we're getting at here, so that's,
Right.
perfect observation.
I mean, every time a student picks up a phone in a classroom or at home or on a school bus or wherever they are, it is a distraction because they're not, it happens to me. I go to text someone and then I pick it up and the New York Times has come, like, it's endless because it's built to addict us. And so our students' brains are impacted in tremendous ways and it's, it doesn't lead to better learning. So if our goal is to have better learning,
It could though.
it hasn't yet.
Well, I'm just saying, for a student, I look at my children and they do their homework and their chores with their phone in their hands. And as much as I yell that's what they do. I can't listen to music when I work. If I'm writing, I can't listen to anything. But a lot of students can watch something or listen to something while doing work. I would want to see data on that, but
I would want to.
they're also A students. So I'm thinking, okay, well, better learning.
I don't know.
yeah.
I can't answer that. So I'm not a.
But there is a great anecdote, which is that 100 years ago, they didn't want people reading books because it would make them antisocial. And the same attitudes towards phones we have today, people had towards books then. And, we would laugh at that, but that's something that, the phones.
I'm not sure that's true.
I've heard it said.
Yeah,
I've heard it said.
I mean, I'll track it down, I'll track down the info, but but I guess I'm not. As much as I hate phones, I don't think they're all bad in terms of social development, mental development, emotional, etc. So if we vilify the phones, the kids are gonna pick up on that and say, well, they're gonna push back, the teachers might push back, so,
Yeah, no, all right, well, it looks like we have some more work to do.
So if it's our committee would like to go forward and makes these changes and bring it back to you, I would recommend July 31st.
I'm out of town. Nice
Is that
job.
time too then?
I'm out of town then.
Okay, all right, that totally, completely failed.
Yeah.
Let's, Amy will talk tomorrow about possible dates,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
And get what we, you know, where we think we could do it. But we need another meeting, and then at that point, we'll vote, possibly vote, whether you recommend, it to the full school committee,
Okay,
okay? Because this will take a lot of discussion.
this will take a lot.
Yeah, and ultimately, the school committee's gotta make a decision through a vote. You know, based on, that, you know, that discussion and that input. Yeah, so,
Okay.
but we wanna give you as clear a policy as we can. And be able to address some of the questions and concerns.
We would have to vote it forward.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying,
Right.
it is, if we're trying to bring them on August 14th,
Right,
we do get into some
Yeah.
real timing issues.
and, yeah, yeah, I'm not sure we'll be able to,
Yeah, no, I hear that. I hear
yeah,
that.
so,
So we do wanna still move as fast as we can.
all right.
One last thing before we move on from this policy, I find it quite redundant to, like in 1.3, to say discourage the improper or unethical use. Because improper by definition, includes, a judgment on morality and, I don't think unethical is necessary, just, being unethical is already improper. So I think it's like, I don't know why that word unethical is in there and also in the opening paragraph.
I kind of like unethical though, it pinpoints. You know, improper way to use a spoon is not unethical, it's just improper. You know,
It's a
so,
nice analogy.
but
I looked up improper and it's not in accordance with accepted rules or standards, especially of morality. You already
we're
are,
dealing with ethics and not morality though.
Yeah,
isn't that pretty much the same thing?
No,
no,
ethics are
conforming-
legal,
Unethical is not conforming to high moral standards.
yeah. So I mean, I think because we're setting a policy and, you know, there's teachers' ethics in the classroom, administrative ethics. I just like the word ethics, so I think something we can work on.
And I have one more question. So this is going, like, this policy, this draft here is assuming that we will agree to allow students to have cell phones on their person.
this is what they are proposing to us. We as this program subcommittee and then we as the school committee can say no.
Yeah, and I know you guys are gonna do some more work on this, and I feel like, shouldn't there be a parallel draft that includes not allowing cell phones from the beginning to the end?
Well, their committee did not put that forward,
Also,
so,
so we, if you direct us to do that, we will. I haven't heard this committee being here yet. Okay, so, but we will make all the changes we discussed and try to nail the spirit and the intent of your suggestions, recommendations, okay? So, but I haven't heard that from this committee yet. But clearly, I've heard discussion of that,
Yeah,
so, but that's up to the committee to talk through and decide. And you can do that now, you can also do it at the next draft.
yeah, I mean,
And also the full school committee can do that as well. It's just-
and
yeah,
will.
Yeah, I have a feeling there's gonna be a lot
Yeah,
of people that will be,
Yeah, no.
like a blanket, no use. I
I,
mean, like, I might be willing to say, like, okay, there's a one time during the day where you can check on messages. And maybe that's lunchtime.
hallway,
right,
I mean, the kids get a cell phone break every 47 minutes or whatever.
A cell phone break.
you mean when they're.
No, I'm saying, once they leave class, they're on it, during lunch, they're
Yeah.
on it.
And I have heard it,
Bathroom.
this is anecdotal, but the students will find a way to use their devices in class.
Oh, sure,
And that's what she told me directly, is like,
oh, yeah,
we use it anyway. We're using it anyway.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like everything you're not supposed to do in life, right?
But that's where the consequences come in.
Right,
That's where the
but-
consequences come in,
Yeah.
and being, I understand, no, 100%, no, 100%.
Yeah,
100%,
so
it's not like,
allowing it on a
but let me just
person.
say, every time a person, an individual thinks you don't see them on the phone, you do see them on the phone, like everyone, an adult, people are like,
I've been
listen,
on my phone the whole time. this
people
whole
are
week.
like this at restaurants. People are
I
like
know.
this at restaurants, like, everybody knows, like, so, but teachers don't wanna
You just can't. You can't. I have 34 kids.
Right,
There's
right.
no way. I'm writing on a board, I'm
Right.
not getting somebody from my
Right.
desk, I'm doing attendance, you know.
Skip checks that are budgeted. I mean,
And that's not a, you know, I don't think that's a huge crime. Until it interferes with education and the discipline of the classroom. Cause the kids are gonna do that when they walk in, they put it away. You know, and you're right, the thing, I mean, it's just that these kids have grown up with the phones. And it's ridiculous to suggest to them to ever be off their phones. So they're gonna have to realize,
They're gonna have to get this, I'm sorry.
yeah, well, they're just gonna have to, you know. The rules, and there are some teachers who will set it down in stone day one. And then there are other teachers who will just kind of let it happen and realize, you know, I really can't do anything, and the kids are always on their phones, so there's always, you know, I think this. 2-2, I think if we knock 2-2 just the right way. We're kind of covering ourselves in terms of our intent for the phones. To not interfere with their education.
I may send you, I saw a chart today from an article on one of the, which showed like which percent, like there's sort of progressive ways of doing this, right? Everywhere from no phones to phones not in the classroom to phones, you know, I saw a percentage in the Commonwealth of like how many districts are using every sort of level. You know, you can bring the phone but have it in the pouch, you can bring the phone and leave it at the front, you can bring the phone and have it in your backpack, you can not bring a phone, like, everybody's trying everything, but I agree that if you're, you know, I don't know, I mean, are you proposing that we get another version of this, or are we waiting for the next? I would be willing to wait for the next version.
Sure, but I think my inclination is to not allow them to carry it. Cause
Okay.
it is such a temptation, and you're relying on these kids to control themselves from an addictive device.
Okay.
I mean, I feel that's like where I'm at with this, and so I feel bad, you know, sending them back to do more work. I mean, not that I'm only one voice on the committee, but I really don't feel like I'm comfortable with students having, you know, the temptation. Cause.
So, I guess we take a vote, or do you want to make a motion on whether we, do that, and we'll see if it passes? Do you want to do it that way? Or do you want to, I mean, we have to decide. We have to just make a
Yeah,
decision.
I mean, like, I don't know, what would be the question here?
Question is, if we want to send these guys back to develop two different policies, one which is a revision of this one, and one which is a version with
Maybe
no,
we're not quite there.
yeah, that's how I feel, but it could be.
Yeah. No, I think we have to think this through, and I think we spent a lot of time on this as it is anyway, so,
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna leave it that we'll wait for the revised version of this. I think it's very possible we're not gonna have this in place for the new school year, but we'll try. I mean, I just think,
Remember, I think it's okay, the only possible change, the impact would be, no matter what the policy becomes, the impact is more likely to be felt at the high school and less at K-8, okay? Which means, you know, if it's gonna be a grand change throughout, one that would honestly speak to taking more time, but also, it would be harder to change midstream,
right,
okay? So anyways, I think it's okay, you know, I think it's important to take time.
yeah,
To make sure that this subcommittee and then the full committee have the, you know, right amount of time to consider and discuss and get input, you know? So, yeah.
okay, yeah, so I think we,
I mean. Should we put the pressure on ourselves to get this out September 1?
it's not on us, because
Yeah.
we have to have another meeting, go through this again, decide if we're gonna vote this up to full committee, that's the first thing. The full committee is gonna have a lot to say about this.
Oh, yeah.
And it gets read more than once. So I think September 1 for the whole thing is just not,
we have what, the 14th and the 28th are
Right.
two scheduled meetings.
Yeah, but I'm not clear that, anyway, I mean, yes, it's not impossible, but
But we could still release this during the year.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All right, just because I mean, yeah, just, you know, like, oh, the new regulations are coming out today, you know, like
I
it
think we
doesn't
just need to spend time on this.
have to be September first.
No, I
Yeah,
think we just
okay.
do. It's just really important. Even though it could change, obviously, after we do it, could change in next year, but I think this is really important. We have to spend time on it. So, all right, should we move on to file IJNDC, the student responsible use policy for electronic devices and network access?
Sure, so this one we had reviewed prior. And there were really, there was a suggestion to change the title, which I have.
Right.
Student responsible use policy for electronic devices and network access. And then I'm also noticing that on the signature page, there was a request to change personnel electronic devices at the bottom, the headline, to personal electronic communication devices to match the policy that we just changed.
Oh,
But we had taken communications off, so we just need to decide what we want it to be called so that it matches both. Either way is fine,
okay.
but those were the only two changes that I have from the last one to what is presented to you today.
Where does the language personal electronic communication device come from?
So it's to refer to the policy we
no, no,
were
no,
just talking about.
No, I know that, I meant like in, you know, in academic language.
So it was communication device and there was conversation in our last meeting. It could be that was too broad electronic devices they wanted to, or electronic device you wanted it to be more broad. It's up to the committee to decide what you want to call it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like MCAS language, when they list everything. They're like MP4 players.
Yeah,
This, and devices, and I think, well, a personal electronic communication device. I don't know, what's another personal electronic communication device besides the cell phone?
watch.
Okay, so, like a smartwatch.
Yeah,
So a smartwatch and a cell phone. We're lumping them together. Oh, that's another thing, that's another dinosaur we have to kill. The smartwatches.
yeah, no, that's,
So-
I mean, that's part of that's included in this, personal electronic devices, that's not
Well, I
just,
think that's why, that's why I think we took communications off of this one.
because that's.
So it might make more sense just to take it off of this, even though we
Yeah.
added it.
Yeah. Dick Tracy here.
Yeah, no, that's, and there could be a new thing, I mean,
There'll always be.
there'll be a thing that wear on their ears, you know,
I'm telling you, holographic implants, we're gonna have
they're the meta thing.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. Oh,
What,
But that was the only changes from the last time we met.
okay.
So I don't know if you have others.
One question I have on this is just during digital citizenship. So my understanding is that this is for use of Rossville Public Schools. Hardware and the internet, like, and the network,
Yes.
correct, right, this is when you're using Gloucester Public, so.
Yes.
So, like, for example, it's the fourth bullet point down, students will be honest about who they are online. I mean, are they? I'm sure that every student can figure out every possible thing, but I mean, they're not creating profiles, are they, like, they have they
No, but on a Google Classroom,
can do that?
they might say that,
Okay,
or they might get some password and impersonate them.
okay, so that's a possibility. Okay. So, and same with students will follow school rules when posting online and will not post without permission. That's a similar.
Wait, where are you?
Which one is
I
that?
moved to privacy, safety and security, sorry, that was the third
Next
one.
page.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yep,
I just, how much are they posting, like, I guess it's just my ignorance here, like. When we're talking about them posting online, are we talking about a school?
it could be on Google Classroom, it could be on any, like, Google Doc, they could impersonate other people, they could they're not typically, they're not going online on
So
Snapchat.
this isn't because they have a lot of opportunities for this.
Right,
This is a safety mechanism, any of it.
okay,
Yes.
yes, that's what I'm trying to say, I know that
It's not
there's not.
because it's happening a lot, it's because,
No.
not because they have a lot of opportunities to do these sort of things. It's a, sort of belt and suspenders.
Right,
Yes,
type.
and here's a question, because I know from so on a Chromebook, can the students sign in any way other than with their Gloucester Public Schools sign in? Can they sign in with an alternate sign?
I mean, I think they can, I don't know, I mean, I'm not sure if they can sign in with
probably, but
another
they
user.
can't go onto our network,
Right, but they could go onto,
a Wi-Fi.
yeah,
I'd have to ask IT if our Chromebooks have blocks that way, I don't know.
so I'd be curious to
You
know
know-
that, just because that's a hardware question, not a software question. Right, but if Gloucester,
I would imagine IT would block that, but I don't know.
I would just like, I would like to know that.
And so the question is, sorry,
Can
can students log into the Chromebook with another ID or another student ID? That's not their own.
Well, they can,
No, the-
I know they can with another student
Right.
ID if I have a
another
password.
student ID they can, so
But
that's,
can I log in at my personal
Right,
Gmail? Is the
correct.
question, and
right,
I don't know
We
that.
could draw that right now. But I actually have done that. If this is anything like the student's Chromebook,
it is,
Your permissions might not be, I'm presuming your permissions are not the same as a.
yeah, okay, yeah.
right.
We can find that out.
Yeah, I don't know that that's a direct thing here, but I'm curious because I know on a Chromebook, in general you can, but I don't know about a Gloucester.
So it depends what they've set up for.
Right,
Yeah.
What's the policy? I know this is a very specific question, but it says students will return all devices and accessories in good condition when instructed to do so. Chargers, I know that this is a virtual hell, is that, like, less than half of the year, the chargers broke, so then the kids use my chargers, which then break or stop working, so is there a penalty, a fine, is there a price?
It's wear and tear.
Sorry, we have insurance
Mhm.
for them. If it's an accidental, the insurance takes care of it. Really, it becomes an issue if the student is repetitively
Right, yeah,
damaging their Chromebook or.
Or doing
charger.
something obviously malicious.
Right, right. For the most part, we have insurance and we file a claim. But if you need 12 charges within a school year.
yeah.
it's different.
we've had an issue with this,
Yeah, right.
it wasn't cracked, but it looked like a crack,
Mm.
Right.
and I don't even know how it happened.
Yeah.
That's there to, to say that we're not damaging it on purpose. Accidents happen, we get insurance.
Right,
If it were to become a pattern, that's something that could be.
all right. Just my son's afraid to ask for a charger.
Yeah.
I'm like, buddy, just add, go to the right, right?
Yeah.
And,
Right, so this is also just saying that no filtering system is perfect, so that is definitely true, there are things that come up on that network
Right.
that are not appropriate.
Right.
what about kids using their own computers?
That's not for this. Well, I guess it is.
Well, it
for the
has network
for the
use.
network.
For the network
They're
part.
not able to get on any of our networks.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have any guest networks or an open network.
So if a kid brings in a MacBook of their own,
They
for
can't.
whatever reason, they can't get on the
They can't.
Wi-Fi.
Staff member can, a student cannot.
Sure, okay,
Right, even for
Very
us, we
close.
get special.
all right. Anecdotally, I had a student today she was on her MacBook doing this credit recovery thing. And all of her texts and notifications were coming on the computer. And, like, I'm helping her set up. In my mind, I'm thinking this is a Chromebook.
You might have her phone taken away, but her texts are
Right,
there.
she can sit there and read everything. Cause they allow MacBooks, in our district, and they can get onto the Wi-Fi, they can't access,
So they can't do it here.
yeah, okay.
All right, well, is there anything in particular that you want us to look at with this? It looks okay to me.
So this went through, it's been presented, this is the second or third time
Right.
view. I
Right.
feel like it's pretty tight except for that,
Right.
that I'm gonna take communications off of
Yeah.
that sign
Yeah,
up
okay.
page.
So. Anyone wanna make a motion that we accept?
But I just have a quick question. You said that you changed the title of this document?
Yes, so it was student. Student responsibility use policy. And your feedback was you wanted to make sure that it was for electronic devices and network access, it was a little more specific.
Yeah, true, and I think the other thing is that when I look at this, like, I initially think this is about like personal electronic devices, it's. I don't, I think I mentioned this before, where it's like, it's not very specific in the title that we're talking about school or like, you know, district-owned devices. Like
Right.
in the beginning.
That's a good point.
So maybe district provided electronic
I don't
device.
know, you know, there's only so much room for freaking.
So they can't get on the network with their own,
Right,
it's not a possibility,
yeah,
right?
So, but it's responsible use policy for electronic devices and network access. GPS guide to use of electronic devices, the computer network. So I think it would have to say, I think a clarification would be like GPS electronic devices. We're talking about owned by the district.
yeah.
Even if it's wordy, I think.
So we're talking about the title, because what is the RMP, is that very clearly?
Yeah, no, we're just talking about the title. We're not talking about, it does say what it is. It's just if we want, it's just a question of if we want the title to be one.
Yeah,
So we're considering whether to make the title longer?
Yes, yes, we are. That's exactly what we're doing.
I believe we started with acceptable use policy before all of this,
Yeah,
so it keeps growing.
Mm.
The other
I
question
don't
is,
understand what the concern
Just
about.
the electronic, I guess because we're talking about electronic devices, this makes it sound like,
All our policies were policies about things that are happening in school and at school events.
and,
So it's, I think that's,
but we have use of personal electronic devices and responsible use policy for electronic devices and access.
for GPS provided.
but do we
Yeah,
want,
Or just GPS, yeah,
so
Well,
yeah.
if we have electronic devices, responsible use. And we allow them to use a cell phone at lunch. We want them to still follow the respective.
Yes. Okay.
So I wouldn't
I
limit
guess
it.
so.
Okay, don't limit it, right, okay, good point, good point, good point. Thank you.
I move to accept with changes.
And the only change was to take out that communication device, correct?
Mhm.
On the signature page?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Second. Wait, you have to, no, sorry, you have to say the whole policy, so.
wait, hold on. You got it, right, I've got it
You've got to write down the motion, and also I realized you have Maria or Stephanie here.
for recording.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So I move to accept the student responsible use policy for electronic devices and network access as
File.
file IJNDC with changes that we just talked about.
And recommend to the full school committee.
Recommend to the full school committee for approval.
I second.
Keith seconds, great.
All right.
I think we need a roll call vote.
Yep.
So Keith,
Roll call vote, on the motion. Mr. Minio,
Yes.
Mr. Keen,
Yes.
Ms. Weason,
yes, motion passes
unanimously.
unanimously. We will present this to the full school committee.
Right.
I'm trying to get my strength back.
Yeah, and then PT.
No, I'm in lobster.
Well,
So motion to,
Motion to adjourn.
there you go.
Anyone gonna second that?
second.
Third.
You take a motion to, have Amy Pascal get herself some cough medicine.
Soft drugs.
Oh, you're right.
Sorry.
Yes.
It's a tickle.
I didn't
Wait, we didn't vote on our motion. Hold on.
Okay, okay.
Oh.
So, roll call on the motion to.
Is it roll call?
Yes.
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 Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Remember when we would say aye in our planning meetings? Those are roll call votes to adjourn or convene.
You left the webinar?
Come on.
I didn't notice your cough.